What if your law firm had a visionary on your team who could spot opportunities and risk before anyone else, but struggles to communicate their ideas clearly? This is me. That's the power and challenge of the creative voice. Welcome back to the Revenue Roadmap, the podcast designed to help family law firm owners build the practice of their dreams, continue to grow and learn and work effectively with their teams. Today, we are diving into our giant leadership series where we continue our conversation on the 5 voices. We are joined by Tony Karls, who is the president and co-founder of our law firm, Sterling Lawyers. He also runs our agency, Rocket Clicks, and we have Matt Hawker, who leads our people systems here at the agency. So he runs all of our giant people systems. He works with each individual on our team to help them understand their voice and how they can communicate effectively with our team. You're going to love this episode on the creative voice, which represents about 10% of people. Creatives are conceptual architects who challenge the status quo and consistently push for improvement. We'll discuss how they can bring innovation and future thinking to your team and how your leaders can better support them despite their perfectionist and sometimes misunderstood nature. I really hope you enjoy it.
All right. Welcome, everybody. It's Revenue Roadmap, where we talk about driving revenue, increasing profits in local businesses. I'm Anthony Karls, president of Rocket Clicks. Today, Mr. Matt Hawker is with me to talk more concepts. Last time we talked about the nurture. Today, we're going to be talking about the creative. So what they look like, go through a lot of the same things we talked about last time we were together. But before we do that, we got our fun little question of the day, question of the episode. Maybe the first one is, why are you wearing a Broncos hat? You live in Iowa, but we're not going to ask you that.
It's true. All right.
Let's see. What resource or tool do you wish you had when you first started in your career, and why is it valuable today? That's actually a physical or software tool or concept or whatever that might be for you. It could be your sweet setup. Like maybe that's what it is.
I mean, that my setup is pretty nice. I'm not going to lie. That's a lot better than what it used to be back in the day too. This is also going to show off my age, so I don't know I really want to answer this question. I think I would be remiss if I didn't say, and this is a very broad and general thing, but the evolution of AI, I think it didn't exist when I started in the professional space. And it definitely does now. It's not perfect, but it's I think it's better than what anybody could have ever dreamed of back when I started working initially. If you would have told people back then what AI is capable of doing currently, they probably would have called a mental hospital and said that this person needs to be admitted, because I don't think anybody saw all of this coming, at least as far as what it is. So that would be, I consider AI to be a tool. And maybe that's kind of a cheapskate answer, but that's how I'm going to answer it.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I think some of the super fascinating things are how fast the video and image quality is getting better. Because I remember when they first rolled some of that stuff out on Discord, and it was get like 9 hands coming out. It was all funny, but now it's a lot better. I mean, you still got some issues, but like that was last year when you the 9-handed individual, or like the weird turned neck or whatever it was. There's a lot of funky stuff going on, but the speed of improvement is pretty incredible. It'll be interesting how these tools will be used to accelerate our society and all of our creative opportunities, and hopefully give us a lot more freedom. So that'd be the goal. But this is not an AI conversation. So
nope,
we're going to be talking about the creative from a leadership perspective. So let's step back a touch and let's remind our audience what we're talking about. So on the 5 voices. So what are the five voices? We talked about the nurturer last time. We're talking about the creative this time. So what are the five voices?
Yep. So we talked about nurture last time. We're talking about creative today. The other three voices are guardian, uh, pioneer, and connector. So those are the five voices of Giant. At the end of the day, all of us are a combination of all of the voices. We just have natural tendencies that lean towards one of the voices more than the others, and then a little bit more for the second voice and the third voice, and then all the way down to the last voice is we're still part of that, but just not as much as all of the rest of them.
Awesome. All right. So the creative.
The
How do we want
creative.
to start off with the creative? I'm a creative, so don't offend me. That's what we'll start it with.
You wait,
You just don't put me in a box, buddy.
I didn't know that you could be offended. I didn't even know that was a thing. Anthony Karls. The creative. So compared to what we talked about last time with the nurturer, where the nurturer, I believe, is 43% of the general population, the creative is much, much smaller. So and it's about 9% of the general population has a creative first voice when it comes to thinking about things in a giant perspective. So much, much smaller. They have natural tendencies to be very like outside of the box thinkers. Um, we like to call them conceptual architects. Like they're very, very future focused. So they can see one of the reasons why they're so important and great to have on your team is from a business perspective. Creatives have a natural tendency to see opportunities way before anybody else, but they also have a natural tendency to see dangers within your business way before anybody else. Um,
I think,
that is,
I think Jeremy says they're like canaries in the coal mine. It's like they're very much like that. They're your little yellow bird saying,
yep,
"Hey, we got a problem. You should probably listen to that bird."
yeah, absolutely. And the cool thing about creatives is, last time we talked about, nurturers being relationship based and all about people. Creatives can be relationship based, but they can also be logic based, and it totally depends on what their second voice is. That is one thing that is kind of unique to the creatives is that they're kind of both, depending on how strong their second voice is and what their second voice is.
Yeah. So the creative guardian and creative pioneer are more logic oriented, so future
Future thinkers.
logic oriented, and then your creative nurturers or creative connectors are much more future relationship oriented. So two different two
Yep,
different types there. So it's
absolutely.
interesting when you look at it from a tendencies perspective. So what do they sound like? We talked last time. There's a process when we go through this workshop where we color code stuff:
Hmm.
yellow, green, red, with shades either direction, depending on
Yep.
how much they sound like you. So what do they sound like?
So it's really interesting what they sound like because they can, or excuse me, creatives are never satisfied with status quo. So if I were to ask you, Tony, rate this rate this thing 1 out of 10, you are in 10 being the best it can ever be, you're probably never going to give me a 10,
Yeah, probably not.
right? Because you have a mindset, and I have a similar mindset. Creative is actually my second voice, that nothing is ever perfect. Everything can always be improved. That's a that when I think that is me leaning into my creative voice. You naturally sit there all the time. But that's really the way that they think, is nothing is ever perfect. Something can always be improved. The word can't, it's like not even part of their vocabulary. I don't even think Tony knows how, I don't even think you understand how to say the word can't.
Actually, I
It's
was,
just,
I was just writing a personal brand guideline and it tells me write words that you use and write words that we shouldn't use. I was doing this for AI and I wrote, all right, words never to use: never, can't, won't. Like those are it's
yep,
funny you say that. I literally put
yeah.
those exact things in there.
But that's really like the mindset behind being a creative. Um, they do have their struggles though, and one of the things that creatives have, uh, they struggle with is a lot of times people don't ever seem to fully understand what it is that they're saying. their thought processes, and therefore because of that people will say, oh, they're very quiet, they're not natural speakers. Well, they actually are, like, but they just don't do it because people generally don't understand them in the first place, or they kind of misconstrue what a creative will say. Like the first thing that comes out of their mouth, they're going to say, "Oh, that's what they meant," and it's like, "No, that's not what they meant. They're just trying to tell you in a different way." So people try to understand what it is that they're saying. So they struggle sometimes with that communication because they're just misunderstood a lot.
Yeah, I know. I think JP does this probably one of the best I've experienced. Typically, a first voice creative and a first voice guardian will kind of fight a little bit naturally because the guardian will ask a lot of probing questions and like prove things to be wrong. Uh, Creatives, if that's done in a antagonistic type way, will more likely use their weapon system. JP does a really good job of like just pulling the thread. That's what it's called. Like pull the thread from a creative, and you'll likely get out what's actually in them that you didn't understand the first, second, or third time that it was said, and it's because of how they're wired and how they think. So it's extraordinary. I can imagine it's extraordinarily frustrating on the other end because it's frustrating on my end trying to get it out sometimes. So
Yep.
it's interesting that you say that.
Yeah, and it's because of that. The loudness of their voice is generally pretty low, and it's just because that's not by. It's not like the nurturer is low because they want it to be low. The creatives are low because they just they're always misunderstood, so they don't like to speak up as much. Um, and then kind of a really big thing is they are like intrinsically perfectionist about everything. So if let's say you have a project and this project is done, and a majority of like 90% of your project went absolutely perfect, and then there's 10% that didn't. They're going to focus on the 10% that didn't because they really want it to be 100% perfect, instead of focusing on the 90% that did go really
Not good.
well. Other brain operates.
Yeah, not good celebrators would be, which can be exhausting if you're not aware of it, and that person's leading. Like hold them accountable because you should have the right to pause and enjoy the wins, not just look at the next mountain to climb.
Yeah, sometimes it's good to stop and smell the flowers. You don't have to pick them all, but you can at least stop and smell
Nice. All right. So
them.
what are they generally the champion of? We had nurturers were generally the champion of relational harmony, bringing the team together, feeling out how the team feels about a particular thing. So they're more culture oriented. Like what's the creative look like?
Sure. A creative, they are natural champions of future ideas. Again, they're very futuristic, very future minded thinkers. They're really, really big on innovation. So, the concept of something, these things can always be better, things can always improve. They're always thinking about ways for different ways to bring innovation into your team and into your company. And in order the reason for that is because they really care about organizational integrity. So those are kind of the three buckets of the things that I would say that a creative is a champion of.
Nice. So what do you watch out for? What'll put them on edge and bring their weapon system out?
I don't know, Tony. What kind of? No, I'm just kidding. So creatives, they struggle with communicating effectively to people. Um, because we've touched on this, right? Like they're misunderstood more than they are understood. So therefore, because of that, they struggle to communicate with people effectively. And the fact that they do have like idealistic perfectionist tendencies isn't always the best thing. There are times when it is very, very good and very needed. But when we go there and we stay there all the time, it can have negative effects.
Yeah. And then how do you empower creative? What does it look like?
I said this just a little bit ago, but like one of the best ways that you can empower them is don't judge them on the first thing that they say. They're not in the moment as much as they are uh, thinking about the future and just speaking in the moment. So don't judge them on what they say right away. Help them communicate their ideas by, like you said, pulling on that string. ask questions to help them get to what they really mean, or to get to the answer that is really there. And it's really okay, Tony, am I speaking to you? It's okay that you're wrong sometimes. And every creative needs to hear that, because of their perfectionist tendencies that they have.
Yeah. Being a creative, I'll say the one thing that's interesting that I think is, for me, being able to like understand this and like manage this has been somewhat of a key to my success. Is when I feel and experience the world, I understand where we are today. And I also can feel and experience the future as if it's happening today. And that's a lot at times. And that's not how everyone operates. So like when I come to communicating from like this, here's where we are today. Here's 3 visions of the future that I have. I'm experiencing all of the pain and emotion of that might come with those, or joy or celebration, whatever that is. When I have a good idea or excited idea, experiencing all of the wins right now. Being able to understand that and pull that thread, when that happens, it's super empowering. When it doesn't happen, it's like, what are you worried about? That to me feels like incompetence. And then I get all triggered and frustrated. Because why don't you see what's happening? Okay, we're not going to talk about it. Walk down the path 3-4 months and it happens. I told you this was going to happen. You didn't want to listen. This is an experience that a creative will have very often in their life. So,
one thing I think about creatives, like, think about it. You're going to look at a new house, right? And you go and you look inside. This actually happened to my wife and I. The very first house that we ever bought, we went inside. In one of the rooms, there was yellow carpet and blue walls and a pink ceiling. And over the entire house was painted with high gloss paint. So like you turn on a light and it is like heaven's gates are opening up and the angel chorus is singing. It was so bright in there. My wife was like, we are turning around and we're going. I'm like, that's just all surface level stuff. I'm like, just think, we get some new paint, we get some new carpet, we get some new fixtures. Like, this house can be amazing. That's what a creative is really good at, is taking what's in the current, visioning out what it can be and what it can become, and helping the everybody else on the team realize that, see that, understand that, and guiding them down that path.
Love it. Awesome, Matt. Well, I look forward to next conversation when we will get to dig into the Guardian and we'll
absolutely
learn more there. Appreciate it, sir.
All right. Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. We hope you gain insight into the strengths and the challenges of the creative voice and how nurturing the voice can spark innovation in your firm. If you enjoyed this and you want to continue to hear our Giant People series, make sure to check out other episodes. I brought one for you right here.